Good afternoon, David.
Afternoon, David. How are you?
I'm no bad. I'll let you finish your text message while I get Facebook on board there.
Yeah, carry on. So I was just, I was playing a game.
Marvellous. Now, David, we're just a couple of geezers sitting here with a bunch of friends talking about current affairs,
Yes.
you know. And we have our own opinions,
Yes.
and we have our own points of view on these current affairs. It's why we very seldom put up videos and things like that. We very seldom put up articles. We're talking about current events between two friends and an audience of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
An audience of friends also. But as we're talking about current affairs, we may as well talk about what's current. So we'll start off with the great debate that's going on in the independence movement at the moment. We're a year out for an election. We get this every time there's an election. We watch the movement rip itself apart. And as usual, David, as has happened every other election so far, I don't know why people think you and I have got such a great influence.
This is down to things that have changed since the 2011, right?
Aye.
And we talk about another party that's come on board, and what they want to do is they want to get as many votes as they can, so
Right.
possibly they'll get a couple of list seats out of it, right?
Right, aye. The democracy, they're entitled to do that.
To be honest with you, I look at my opinion. My opinion is
We're not ready for the opinion bit yet, David. We're not ready for the opinion bit, but we'll get there.
my opinion is that effectively what they're doing is they're split the vote. That's all it is.
What they're doing is they're filling the void, David.
What they should be doing is they should be all discussing how we're going to get more people to back independence in this country. Simple as that. Because we're still at 50-50. You know, you've got nothing. If you talk about being a pro-independence party, and what you're doing is splitting the vote. To what end? Well, you're putting
at this point in time, David, people seem to, every time there's an election, people seem to misunderstand what you and I are saying.
Yeah.
And this seems to have happened here again, because I put my head above the parapet and said something about this the other day there. And I said, what I actually said was, I'm not getting involved in this bloody debate again.
Yeah. Got it right.
And then you've got one character saying that I'm advocating for SNP 1 and 2, and you've got another character, which we'll no name, saying that I'm advocating for splitting the vote. No, or we're advocating, actually, the second character thought we were advocating for splitting the vote.
Are we talking about a certain gentleman named Thomas MacArthur by any chance?
Aye, another gentleman, his name I've had, but so like you say, this is what happens in the great debate, you know. So, you know, I'll let you see the comment for this person who's misunderstood what I had to say. And that person said, Davy McGuinness supports again SNP 1 and 2. How fucking dumb is he? Now, the person who wrote that is a bit of shite.
David, can you bring it down a wee bit?
No, I don't want to show his name.
Oh, well, you could get it if you actually joined the letters, but anyway.
No, but the person in question is a friend, and once again, he's misunderstood something I said. Folks, I'm not telling you how to vote. I've said this for the last three elections. I'm not telling you how to vote.
Well, I assure you, that Thomas MacArthur has never heard me saying I.
But as I say, we want to clear up any misunderstanding here. We're not telling you how to vote. But more importantly, what we have done is point out a couple of obvious things while everybody's talking about maxing the independence vote. I like the idea of a fully pro-independence parliament a day, or as many pro-independence MSPs in there as we can get. But there are a couple of facts that have to be addressed here. And that is that In 2011, we won a majority for the SNP, meaning they had the majority of seats in the parliament.
Correct.
Referendum was awarded. 2016, 2021, we elect a pro-independence parliament twice, and it was ignored. Right now, we have a pro-independence parliament, and it's no seen to be enough.
That's right.
So,
what's the no? If you figure it, what's the difference in that? The difference is the 2011 one was where it was an SNP majority.
yep,
Right? So that was your pro-independence majority from the SNP.
yep,
The moment you had to invite another parliament, another party, good party as it is, right? That the Greens are, that still in all, it's splitting up the pro-independence power, as it were, right? And that's the point at which effectively Westminster go, they're not worth boring about. Some of that.
It's Andy Scott Bryan is rightly say that pro-independence parliament
was, whereas when Alex Salmond came through and said, right, we're having a referendum in 2014, don't know the actual date yet, and then up came David Cameron going, no, that's, I suppose I'll have to support him.
But as I say, David, I'm really flattered that the person who wrote that I thought that and thinks I've got so much influence.
Listen, Gary,
really flattered. But wait a minute, David, let me finish this point.
Right.
Really, because people were going to make this clear. In that last broadcast, I made a few things plain. They don't recognise a pro-independence Holyrood. They do recognise a pro-independence Holyrood when it's a single party who's won that majority.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
These are undisputable facts. And the other, wait a minute, David, I need to finish this. The other thing I said was that we do know which, when the wee Ginger Doug was asked this question, and I quoted the wee Ginger Doug by saying, well, before you get into the polling, just remember, we know what worked the last time. We know what works. And that wasn't me saying that. That was me quoting something the wee Ginger Doug had said on the TNT broadcast.
Yeah.
But, folks, let's make this clear, because this is going to be a debate going forward. I'm not getting involved. David says he's not getting involved in this one either. Because for the last 3 elections, we've watched this nonsense play out. And what's happened is, we've been ignored.
Yeah.
Sorry, the last 2 elections, we've watched this nonsense play out. And we've been ignored.
You imagine at the end of the day, it's like, I am, unashamedly, I'm an SNP member. And it's like, I follow the SNP, simple as that. I might not agree with everything the SNP does, and you've
about to find out, David, very shortly.
You've heard me sort of dealing with the question of John Swinney, right? Well, I want rid of vehemently. I want him out of the personality. What's they call it? Saved by the bell, right?
Someone is at the front door.
Anyway, I'll carry on. Well, you deal with that, David, okay?
Sorry about that.
So, folks, I'm not telling you how to vote. David's not telling you how to vote. But what's also funny about this is these people who are having a go at us seem to forget that David and I are party members.
No, I'm doing a broadcast at the moment, so sorry about that. Right. It's David, I think. Sorry about that, David.
That's all right. And see, what's funny about these people is they seem to forget that David and I quite clearly state that we are members of the SNP. But we've got some undisputable facts in front of us, folks. We have a pro-independence parliament, they've ignored it. When we had a majority for a single party, they didn't ignore it. Undisputable facts. And another undisputable fact is we know what works. It worked before. But that doesn't mean that that's what we should all do again. I haven't said that. But there's 3 facts that you can't dispute. And I'll debate anybody on these three facts. 2011, majority, single party issue went through. 2015, minority SNP government issue didn't go through. 2021, majority pro-independence parliament issue ignored.
Right.
So with two majority pro-independence parliaments, issue ignored.
Now is not the time.
And that's these facts are indisputable. The other indisputable fact was that what one is the majority the last time. That doesn't mean it's going to be the thing that's going to win as a majority this time. Actually, according to John Curtis, the thing that's going to win as a majority this time is Reform UK.
There was one time that the Dahont voting system was broken, and that was 2011.
Yep.
SNP 1 and 2, right? And most people went through that way. They didn't understand about trying to work the system and all the rest of it, right? And what happened was it broke the Dahont system. And what happened was the SNP ended up with a majority, a good working majority, right? And at the end of the day, that's what generated the situation where Alex Salmond could go in and form.
Yep. Now, I'm going to read Phil's comment out because it is prevalent. I get what you're saying, Davey. Another indisputable fact is accepting a few constituencies voting 1 and 2 is a waste of one vote for the most part. Now, I've said that myself, actually, Phil. But that's also not true because there's only one single way to break this system, and that's for every single person to vote in one direction. It'll never happen, but it's the only way to break this system. Because that way you've made the double.
It happened in 2011.
It happened in one constituency, you're right. They overwhelmingly voted in one direction, and that affected the list.
That's right.
That affected the list.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not arguing about splitting the vote, because I'm not interested in how you vote. David and I are not telling you how to vote. That's the thing we're trying to make clear here. But
use your own conscience, guys. And it's like, imagine this. If you're for independence, let's see, you're going to vote for the Lib Dems? Nah, I don't think I'd be doing that, right? Are you going to vote for Labour? No, not after what they've done. Definitely not. Tories? Well, they blocked the code book in the last Westminster Parliament. Who else we got? Greens. Well, I vote with SNP. I'm not going to say I'll never vote for Greens ever. But at the same time, right now, I'm a SNP member and I vote SNP. So what's that? And we're going to vote for Alba. Why would I do that? So yeah, again, you've got to pepper your judgment with all these arguments, right? Well, which are you going to vote for? If you're pro-independence, then okay, it's an opinion. I'm entitled to that opinion.
Aye, they're all entitled to their opinion.
My opinion is that why would I vote anything else apart from SNP? I want independence.
As I say, I'm not making that argument, David. In fact, I'm not getting involved in this debate. That was the point I was trying to make. But there is
Keep it right, David. You're not making that argument as in the case of telling anybody what to vote.
Yes.
So I'm giving you my opinion of why it is I hold that opinion.
Yep.
Simple as that. And that's it. The reason why I hold that opinion is because I want independence. Right?
As I say, but David, the people who are having a go are people who are misunderstanding this.
It doesn't matter what you vote this time. It doesn't matter what you vote in 2026. We are not going to be independent in 2026, right? It's not going to happen, right? If it ever happens, it's going to be 2029 when we've got the opportunity to have a plebiscite election. So call this a good dress rehearsal. If we can get people to vote SNP as possible, that'll give them a good idea. They can then get a press conference and go, well, we did well there, but to remember, next time it's got to be as good or better.
As I say, the main point here is I'm flattered that people think you and I have got such an influence. But this is a debate we're not getting involved in. The reason why we're not getting involved in it is quite simple. We are unashamedly members of a political party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we toe the party line.
But going further than that, we have donated personally to that political party. That's why we had a laugh at Nicola Sturgeon getting a forensic tenor in front of her door. Say it, man. It still gets me. It really does.
Members of the party, we finance the party. We campaign for the party. But I'm not telling you how to vote, folks.
Yeah.
But and that's the point here. People don't misunderstand or misread what we say. I've pointed out 3 undisputable facts to be taken into consideration. Now go vote the way you want to vote. And Thomas, we are not advocating split the vote. And John, we are not advocating voting SNP 1 and 2. That's up to you people. We know what we're doing because we're party members. You're right. So it's not like that. I'm only pointing out 3 unequivocal, 3 totally true facts. What works and what the situation is with our party with additional pro-independence parties in it is ignored.
Right.
Because they seem to have only recognised a single party as a majority.
Yeah, I think we've covered that now.
Aye.
Okay. At the end of the day, we don't need to say any more other than that we ain't playing.
No,
we're not going to be drawing it. We're not going to be drawing out on this and that and try to argue this position or that position. If you want to carry on, feel free. Fill your boots, right? But please remember, you want independence? Somewhere is that. Think about it hard.
You say, just take these things into consideration when you are going to make your decision. But it's your decision, people.
Yeah.
Also, I have to say, I'm quite flattered that people think we've got that much of an influence. I'm also a wee bit disappointed that they've misunderstood what was actually said to them.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was being quite clear. I repeatedly said, I'm not telling you how to vote. So, let's move on. That's the first of the things that are really current here within the Yes movement at the moment, David. Let's move on to what's current in Scottish politics and in the Parliament. John Swinney held a summit on yesterday, of 50 organisations made up of trade unions, religious groups, civic society and political parties. And its aim was to discuss how to stop the right wing from distorting our left of centre values, which is an interesting concept. Now, as we know, the Scottish Tory leader, Russell Finlay, or whatever the hell his name is, he decided he wasn't showing up. Well, after all, they are on the right of politics.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Strength and unity. Strength of unity is his catchphrase that goes out. David says, keep rising the prize. Mine is time for independence. And John Swinney says, strength and unity. Better together. How's that? Fuck off, John.
The problem is, David, our point of view, and we are talking politics, current affairs here, your point of view, given this thing airtime is a bonus for Nigel Farage.
Yeah. All he's done is he's created a massive, I mean, what does it say? All publicity is beneficial, is positive, right? It's all good for you, right? And for the Reform Party, my goodness me, John Swinney could have stood in the Clydebank shopping centre on top of an orange box with a great big PA system and said, vote reform, you know fine well it makes sense, but be careful, because when the bastards get in, you won't get them out again.
Now, what's interesting about it is John is openly showing fear, and I don't know why, because according to the other John Curtis, the rise of reform in Scotland is going to let the SNP run a savvy in this next election.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we had a situation whereby he called together a coalition of the willing. Obviously the Tories weren't, because they said that they wouldn't attend unless the SNP dropped independence entirely. Have they already done that? Maybe they have. I don't know. Anyway, John Swinney has, right? This was one of those situations where we really need to look hard at what we actually give out to the press, because the press have a fucking field day with stuff like this. Really do. Especially as we are sitting with a pro-unionist mainstream media, broadcast and papers.
Well, what's interesting, because the four things up for debate yesterday in the forum were, of course, inequality, deprivation, misinformation in the media, and participation in democracy.
Yeah.
That was the four subjects up for debate.
If you go back the way, participation in politics, people are sick of it now. They're starting to get really tired of it. That's the unfortunate thing. And it's people like Swinney that are doing it. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I went on, and I happened to see, when I did, First Minister's questions, Nicola Sturgeon was entertaining. You were guaranteed that she was going to put down Sawa or whoever was in charge of the Tories this week, right? And it was good fun. It really was, honestly. So you look at people now, and John Swinney's a Mr. fucking nobody.
Well, David, I don't want to get into personality with John, but what I will say is this summit showed fear.
I do.
I know you do, but we're not going to do it. All right, please. To my mind, it showed fear.
Yeah.
It showed that they should be frightened of the right instead of
showed how weak a leader he actually is. Simple as that. You want a weak leader? Fine, that's okay. Now, I'm still saying vote SNP. Why am I still saying vote SNP when I can say that? Because I know for a fact the SNP will only tolerate John Swinney for so long. Then when things start to get serious, we'll start all the different places around about, or the SNP groups will start going, maybe we don't want this guy as a leader.
As I say, I'm not getting into voting John. I just think it was this is a weak move.
Well, I told you the other day there, I had a few comments between Angus, Brendan McNeil and myself, and Angus was saying, he's saying, it's pointless trying to get rid of John at the moment because there's nobody to put in his place. There's nobody right at the moment ready to put in his place. And okay, yeah, he's got a point. And his final point was, it's like moving the deck chairs. That's all you're doing.
As I say, I'm quite open with John. I've seen him actually, as Nicola Sturgeon's fucking terrier, actually stand up. He might still find a backbone. You know, this idea that he can have consensus politics with the unionists. That's Nicola tried that and all. So I'm not going to. As I say, for me, he's a branch. He's a Tesco manager. He's a talented administrator.
Yeah.
Now, could he possibly change into something that could be a force? I don't know. And to be fair, the jury's out. He's quite popular in the party, David. Let's not kid ourselves on. But as I say, this was a wrong move because now we'll get the unionists trying to link the SNP and reform and one vote, one barge. We'll get reform protesting outside the thing saying that the SNP, Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens, the trade unions and religious organisations in there are anti-democratic because they were partly attending. You've got Nigel Farage getting airtime to tell the Scottish public that he does not support right-wing extremism. You see what I mean about being a circus and
honestly, I saw the broadcast that Farage put out, but
to be fair, David, to make sure that our viewers are quite clear on this, you and I have got slightly different opinions on John. Yeah. And that's okay because we're friends and we can fall out about these things.
Yes.
I'm going to give John the benefit of the doubt.
And I am not.
Because I understand the difference between we want it new, that's us, and a gradualist.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I know that John's a gradualist. He's one of these people who believes if we show good governance, the people will flock to us.
Well, there's a rather important message comes from that, right? If the people of Scotland don't get fucking moving now in terms of campaigning and building the movement for independence, people like John Swinney will sit back and go, oh well, it seems they don't want independence anymore. And what they'll do is, they won't say, oh, independence is over. They'll just forget about it. I wonder where I've heard that before. They'll just forget about it, right? And what they'll do is, they'll run Scotland as well as they possibly can until eventually, properly, it is subsumed as a region or whatever of England. Yeah? Scotland becomes just the same as the Midlands, right? Or whatever. Right?
It already is.
Yeah.
I don't buy that. I don't buy it. So.
No, I tell you what, seriously, see if you don't take things like that seriously. You're in trouble. Scotland's in trouble.
As I say, he gets the benefit of the doubt. When the party doesn't think he's moving in the right direction, the members will move him.
Oh, yes. And I have confidence in the party to do
they
that.
Are.
Yeah.
So they are. And when the time comes, if he has to be moved on because he's missed too many own goals, the party will move him on.
Yeah.
We'll do it through the use of democratic means.
So the advice, if I can give any, is work on building the Yes family.
But this is about the right wing, David. And the Yes family is quite healthy at the moment.
If you want rid of the right wing out of Scotland, Scotland is not a naturally right wing country. Scotland is the SNP was always sort of left of centre, right? And I would say the majority of people that I know are thereabouts, right? They're not very left wing. They're not centre. They're definitely not right wing, right? So therefore, get ahead, push for independence. You can get rid of the hard right, dead simple, by pushing for independence.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one at all, David.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Agree with me? Stop it! You shouldn't be agreeing with me.
Anyway, I was saying. So on stopping the march of the right here in Scotland, do you know something? I think about 16 or 17% is about as far as the right could go in Scotland, because I think that's the percentage of knuckle draggers we have.
Aye, yeah. But the thing about it is, either they are stone cold unionist, so they've got a brain, but it's just that they support dear old Blighty, right? So you get that side, right? The other side is they haven't got two fucking brain cells. They're in actual fact, they're a competition with Jackie Bailey over that one, right? And
Jackie Blues, she's only got one brain cell.
okay, right? And in that case, they're easily woman-led. They don't really have any thoughts themselves, and they think that people like Nigel Farage, oh, it sounds like a good person to go and have a pint with. Let's go and have a pint with Nigel, right? You have no idea what fascism actually means. Fascism at the start will draw you in. Everything good will come from fascism. Then they'll turn. Once they've got control, that's when they'll turn, right?
Well, as I say, I think the right wing's definitely a threat.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the way England's moving further and further to the right, unfortunately.
But the wrong way to deal with it is to have a meeting on who the enemy is, right? That is not the way to go about it, Mr. Swinney. That's not the way to go about it at all.
I don't think it was the way to go about it at all. It was like going out to the public and asking them for a policy and how to stop this.
Yeah.
What he needs to do to stop it is keep winning elections and keep them out of power.
Yes, that's right. What he's done is he's almost guaranteed taking a section of what would have been the SNP's wings away. We're pushing people that initially were going, oh, I don't know which way to vote. Oh, definitely I'm going to vote for reform this time. That'll teach the SNP. That Nicola Sturgeon, she filled her fucking boots with money, right? And it's like you're all coming out. We're gonna vote reform just to see, give them just desserts. Stupid man. It's really John Swinney, stupid man.
Anyway, we're all clear on your opinion of them, right? Let's move on, shall we? London set up a wee meeting to try and discuss peace in Ukraine, did they know? And Zelensky ended up no coming because he got wind that Westminster had set it up as a mugging for the Americans.
Yeah.
And of course, when Zelensky didn't show up, we had Vance and we had Rubio out making comments about him. We've now got Trump saying he's got to go. We've got Vance giving orders that he's got to give up the territory that he's lost if he wants peace. Absolute lunacy.
Yes, it is lunacy.
But the question is, what was Westminster's part in this? This was supposed to be European leaders that were going to be talking to Zelensky about a way forward and trying to find peace. How did the Americans sneak into this one?
The Americans basically had backed out of it. They had backed out the whole thing. And now all of a sudden they're in because of this.
They say it stinks.
Yeah, of course it does.
I mean, who the fuck do America and Russia think they are that they can carve up whatever they fucking want between them without consulting the people who live there?
Well, yeah, this is part of America's power play. Because they're not getting their way on the tariffs and causing damage and making everybody look this way. Look at we're in charge, right? What they're doing is then they pick on the little guy, Zelensky, in order to take power and that back again. You know.
They basically like that, the Yanks, you know, they're really playing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Donny's got trouble at home, so he's away to try and look important on the international stage again.
Yeah.
And it's been facilitated apparently by his lapdog in London.
Yeah.
But Zelensky got one day, didn't show up, sent some other representative, no doubt that's normally how they do these things.
Yeah.
And you've got the Americans throwing their dummy out the pram.
And then what did David Lammy say? Because I never saw any comments from him. He's the foreign secretary. He should be
Never seen
involved.
any comment from him either, but I didn't go looking for one.
Yeah. One would say, definitely looking at it, that this is definitely Zelensky's proudest moment when another leader is saying you're going to have to remain giving up that land, right? And for that leader of that country to say under his breath, get stuffed, stay out of it. Ukraine will sort this out as best it can, right? And that's it. End of story.
See, there's no way this thing's going to come to an end until Ukraine and Russia sit down at the table with each other.
It's not going to come to an end then, David, because what's going to happen is that if they do manage to have a permanent ceasefire, Russia will lick its wounds for a year, maybe a couple of years. It'll get rearmed, more missiles will be in place, it'll restock up for this, and then they'll hit Ukraine again.
Well, we did see that when they took Crimea and then took a break to get restocked and rearmed.
Yeah.
And then 2022 and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like with Russia, I don't know what the answer is. The best answer a lot would be for people like Putin to effectively, excuse me saying that this way, but to be removed from power, to removed any way possible, right? And if you had a normal, ordinary leader in place in Russia, and a normal, ordinary leader like Zelensky is in place in Ukraine. And that way, okay, fine, they might have disagreements, but they can talk about them instead of blowing fire missiles at each other.
I need to address something. It would appear that an audience member has misunderstood what we are doing here. What's happening above that level of analysis? We're just a couple of mates talking current affairs, BB. We're not here to bring up articles, incidents, maps, and all that sort of thing. That's the thing we do in private. We're on here to talk to each other about it and to hopefully entertain and give a point of view on it. We're not here to do in-depth analysis. Hi Darren, Daily Blase, how's it going, mate? Looking forward to seeing you when you come up the road. Well, this isn't an in-depth analysis programme. We're two guys talking about current affairs. What's current in Scotland, what's current further afield. That's all. We're only talking about them. We're not doing in-depth analysis. We're just doing opinions on situations that have come up in the press based on the wee bit of research that we do ourselves before we do the programme, or the big bit of research depending on the subject. So we're not doing in-depth analysis. Right, back to where we were. Right. The man's baby trying to deflect the troubles at home by trying to take control of the situation in Ukraine again. Zelensky was right to just, I'm not playing, I'm off ski.
As far as I'm concerned, this is Zelensky's answer to the Oval Office debacle. In the Oval Office, I've heard people like Lech Wałęsa in Poland writing a letter saying he was disgusted at what he saw happening in the Oval Office.
So we're all horrified, David, but as I say,
and there is no way around that. But Zelensky found a way by going, I'm blanking you, crowd. We know fine well we're not going to help with America, so end of story. That's it.
Well, as we know, Europe has been trying to step up to the plate and plug the gap being left by America.
One can imagine that Ukraine is sitting there with a bill for everything that America did for them, right? So any arms and whatever. Same as it did with us, same as America did with us after the Second World War. Britain ended up, Britain, God forgive me for saying that, right? But the United Kingdom ended up with a bill for everything that the Americans did, and we ended up paying off that bill over the next 40 years, was it? Thereabouts. So Zelensky's probably sitting there with a bill thinking, all right, fuck you. Fine, you'll get your money eventually, but you're going to have to just go and step out a moment.
Well, as we know, Trump's run the extortion racket. He wants the rare earth minerals in exchange for continued security assistance. But Europe has stepped up to the plate.
One of the nicest things I read over the weekend was the fact that the Chinese that have got 245% tariffs have just went, look at you. And what they've done is they've contacted all the airlines throughout China and said, hey, you get orders for America for airplanes. Yeah, we have. And what's happened is China effectively have dropped 8,830 airplanes on order from Boeing over the next 20 years. That is painful. That is really painful.
Aye. As I say, the Chinese boy at the weekend there who was doing the rounds on the media doing south when they were talking about America having the bigger gun and China losing 15% of its sales. And China went like, China's been around for 5,000 years. America's only been around for the blink of an eyeball. We'll survive. The world's a bigger place than America,
You've got to look at this, but you look at SpaceX. SpaceX are no longer NASA, right? NASA are first used SpaceX as a contractor, right? We've going somewhere with this, so hold on.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So now we've got a situation where NASA are out of it. They are away from it, right? Okay. So SpaceX, what's happening with SpaceX at the moment? Well, at the moment they're licking their wounds over their rocket blowing up again, right? That's Chinese again today, putting another 3 astronauts onto their space station, right? And they've just discovered a way to produce from carbon dioxide, what we all breathe out, right? To produce oxygen, water, and rocket fuel from that in space.
Well, that research, but what I will say is China really stuck it to them. But that's the subject actually, and that is that Bjorn's man baby has decided he's going to start stepping back for tariffs because of the pressure internally. He hasn't got much choice. America's on the skids.
Big deal. Yes, they really are on the skids. Big deal. Yes.
And where he was trying to get big corporations to move in, they're actually moving out.
Well, if you remember what we said a few weeks ago, we said that the people that have made Trump be elected, which is let's name them: Musk, Bezos, right? Who's a Facebook? Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah.
Plus the fact, don't forget that Russians were still involved. Russians. Why do you think the American administration started to speak like Russians when it came to dealing with Ukraine?
I'm not playing that one, but I get you coming for the eye.
Right. So all these different entities, let's call them, right? They've paid the piper. Now they want to call the tune. Right. Break America, make it cheap for to buy stuff. My goodness me. Boeing, I think I could afford Boeing this afternoon, really. Seriously, my pension's just in, so I reckon I could afford Boeing. No bother at all, right?
The whole bloody company.
Yes. And at the end of the day, it's like you've got to look at that and go, America is broken. It was already broken If it hadn't been for the reserve currency being a petrodollar, that everybody in, what's that organisation called again? BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus a whole host of other countries now making up BRICS. They are buying from each other in their own currency. And at the end of the day, the petrodollar is no longer going to be used for buying or selling oil. And America was in a bad way before. Now, after this, wow.
Well, to be fair, Phil, that's the road I was going to go down. But David's decided what direction we were going in here. And that's the point of having a discussion on current affairs. You get other people's opinions, you know. Hey, John, how's things? I'll put that up in a wee minute. No, and this is why he's doing the U-turn. All these places telling him there's not going to be anything on the shelves, by the way.
The problem is, once you've told a big section of your population, make America great again, and they're all on board and they go, right, okay, and all of a sudden you do a U-turn, it's going to be ages before that population starts going direction that you're in. Do you realise that? Do you realise that? Right? There's the other chap that sent you a message there. That realise that you are not going to change that.
Hey, at the end of the day, we will take our independence just the same as every other independent country did. Hopefully sooner than later before her and me snuff it. I'm sure you and I will keep going for a while yet, you know, Git. Thanks, John. Thanks very much, my friend. It's very much appreciated. It really is. You know. Yeah. John, you know what? There's an awful lot of activists that we have known for a long time now, David, who feel the same way. You know, we better hurry up or we're not going to be here. Whereas the young are not quite as impatient as we are. You know, to be fair.
What's that? Satan's come over. Psst, anybody want to buy some Trump mem coin? We'll do a biggie deal on it. Afternoon, folks. Rachel is a great human. B-Day. Oh, I love it. I really do.
Larry the cat for me.
See the banter that we see online. It's absolutely bloody wonderful. It really is.
Right, let's get to the one we've been trying to fucking avoid, David. Scottish Government acquiesced to the Supreme Court judgment on the 2010 on the interpretation of the 2010 Equalities Act and how that in turn affects public bodies in Scotland.
To be honest with you, I think it was one most common sense move. Even though a lot of us might disagree with what they did, the most common sense move that the Scottish government, right? Because if you imagine what has been floated is, a bastard SNP should apologise for the gender recognition thing and all the rest of it, right? That's people that don't know and don't follow, right? They only get so much of the information and they equate it all to be the SNP because it came from the Scottish Government, but it actually came from all the parties in the Scottish legislature, right?
Yep.
So if you imagine what's happened is that the Scottish government, the SNP government, are basically they've got their representative up to make an announcement of yes, we agree with what's been put across by the Supreme Court. Yep. And they've taken the wind out of the sails of this thing of they should all apologise. John Swinney should apologise. Yeah. Nicola Sturgeon, my goodness, she should apologise. Right? Take the wind out of the sails that people will do that, right? This is not over. The gender recognition thing is not over. The reason being is because you have 500,000 people throughout the length and breadth of the United Kingdom that are still alive and they're still able to argue their case, right? or people are prepared to argue the case for them, right? And lots of things, lots of practical things, practical issues along with this that don't work.
No.
So, and we've actually seen the thing that David and I were on about was unisex toilets. It's already happening, guys.
Aye.
I mean, I don't get out very much, but my wife was able to tell me there's a lot of gymnasiums that have gone unisex and all the rest of it, right? And there's the cubicles, complete cubicle like David was describing, water ceiling, right? And the story.
As I say, we've already spoke about repeatedly how the legislation is going to have to be amended. You cannot have an Equalities Act that doesn't treat everybody equally. That would be fucking madness.
Yeah.
You know, that would just be madness.
Yeah.
But that we've already spoke about how this thing's been blown right out of proportion, as it's only an interpretation of a single piece of legislation.
Yeah.
And how that affects the public bodies and wider society.
One argument I heard the other day there, and it needs a bit of research. Perhaps you guys could help. Is that they're talking about the European Court of Human Rights? It's still got power within the UK, and they can take on the Supreme Court. Now, okay, did the Supreme Court do wrong? Well, all they did was they interpreted a piece of existing legislation, or three pieces of existing legislation, and basically outlined that for the people that were watching, right? So, what good would it be getting the European Court of Human Rights involved to deal with that? Because you think to yourself, how enough would they overturn what the Supreme Court said when all they did was they offered an interpretation?
What they do is offer guidance on it, David.
Yeah, that's that. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, one thing I do know is this ain't over.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, and
the wisest thing that Parliament doing that road today, and it isn't a wise place at this point in time, it's full of fucking idiots and goons. The wisest thing they could do is take a look at it, see if it could be amended. If no, then rip it up and start again.
Yes, I mean these people, the transgender people, were affected. In actual fact, I've got to enlarge that and say these people, and even the people that say women are entitled to get their spaces back or their language back and all that, right? They were all let down by politicians. Some of that who didn't write legislation correctly in the first place.
That's right. And that is the one subject we didn't really want to talk about today, because it's been blown right out of proportion.
Yeah.
And
now,
I don't think
the one thing I will say is that you lot can continue talking about this until the cows come home. Right? Seriously. Right? You can talk about it every day, all day, and all that stuff, right? However, what would Boris Johnson call that? He would call it a dead cat. Right? In actual fact, what we should be discussing is how we get this bloody country ripped off and away from the union. And doing that, your future is better placed, because stuff that comes out of Westminster isn't very good at all. And it's definitely not for the people of Scotland. We had our own gender recognition bill that was actually formed by all the different parties that make up Holyrood, right? So at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want legislation coming out from our own place. We don't want to be adopting legislation that's poorly written in Westminster. Something like that.
And it was poorly written, apparently.
Yeah.
As I say, it's a subject we didn't really want to cover, because it's given more flames to a fire that just isn't that high.
Yeah.
It was the outcome of the interpretation of one piece of legislation there are multiple pieces of legislation which might have to be looked at again because of this judgment.
Yeah.
But that's the whole reason for having a legislator. And if things are going to be fixed, amended, sorted, then that's going to have to happen because we can't have 500,000 people with less rights than anybody else.
Something else I heard the other day there, I don't know if it's true, is J.K. Rowling, is she going through transgender thing? She's going to change her name to Harry Potter. Well, I don't know where.
That's beneath you, dear boy. That's beneath you.
You couldn't go. Well, that's true.
Oh, you could make it up all right. Yeah. Right, I guess we'll start winding this one down, David.
Yeah.
So, in summary, we're not telling you how to vote.
No. Use your own conscience.
We think that David and I personally think that John's conference yesterday was counterproductive.
Yeah.
London should be supporting, if we're in this union, whether we like it or no, but while we're in it, London needs to be supporting Ukraine, not try to ambush it but on behalf of the Americans.
Yep.
Trump, he's seen the disaster he's created, and we haven't really felt the impact yet, but it is coming. And the Scottish Government, David, you think they've done the right thing by just saying, all right, we'll accept this bloody judgment and amend the acts in order to make them work for that particular piece of legislation. I don't think they had much choice, really, did they?
No, I think it was the best way to diffuse, to let the air out of something that was stupid. It was where people were going, the bloody SNP, they deserve to apologise for this. John Swinney apologised. Nicola Sturgeon apologised. For what? For something that every party in Hollywood actually did. So.
When passions and politics merge, we get our independence. The poll tax was massive anger against a bad policy. We need the same mass anger against bad UK government. And then we'll win our nation back. That's a fair enough point, Graham.
Good point, Graham. In actual fact, if you want to get people together, you have to show them an enemy. Hitler was good at doing that, wasn't he?
David, that's one of your better quips if you want to get people together, show them a common enemy. But that's exactly how UK works. What they do is divide and conquer. If we want to counter that, we need to create the enemy, and that's the one that's doing the dividing. Okay.
At the moment, Scotland is the enemy. But you listen to what's been going on over the past few years, Scotland is the enemy. Everybody else is united against Scotland. And that's going to get worse and worse and worse until you lot realise independence is that important.
Hey, Chris, I have that back to front. The US are forcing Europe to take over after causing the whole situation to start. That's very true, Chris, you're right.
My question to Chris would be, why did Vance et al. Turn up at that meeting today?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday.
No, actually, he's quite correct. He is quite correct. Trump is walking away. They try to get back in charge thing. We were right earlier. You were right earlier. That's just a distraction to what's happening at home for him. He's trying to stand up on the old stage and look important, basically saying to American people, look at me. Don't look at the disaster I've created. Thanks, Kazzy. A wee something for the indie grannies. Sorry, it's not. Kaz, times are tough for everybody. That's why we're grateful for every penny that goes towards the food banks. And you guys are sustaining an awful lot of people here in Scotland.
But if you just get your pension, like me, buy Boeing.
Buy Boeing.
Seriously, buy Boeing. Because see, after all this is done, after Trump has shown the door, right, and eventually these people in America wake up to what's going on, right, Boeing will go back up again. Don't worry about it. And somebody will actually go into will realise you were really upset with that, Mr. Xi Jinping. We'd like to save some of these orders if we can, please.
Phil, there's no need to bring the soft furniture molester into the conversation. Right, David, that's it. Time's up. I've got work to go to.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for for tuning in. I'm glad we get a chance to clear up the misconceptions of some people on what we're advocating.
Yeah.
And thanks very much, moderators, for moderating. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button, please. It helps the algorithm. It all helps to raise money for food banks. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We're trying to get 3,500 by the end of the year. Hopefully 4,000 by the end of the year. Please, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button.
And why do us two all get sitting chew the fat about what's going on? I'll tell you why. Because you guys are here. You guys that make this special. Really, and some of the banter I read in here is unbelievable. Wonderful. It really is, honestly. So, okay.
Right.
Dilly's made to go. What's that? We are. Bye, Davey. Bye, guys.
Bye, David. Matter of fact, it's no one. Right, see you later, folks. Look after yourself.
Right, okay.
We'll see you Monday. I'll decide tomorrow morning whether I'm going to do a broadcast Monday morning from the place that we're going away to the weekend from.
Yeah,
but I don't really know if I want to go up at 7 o'clock in the morning to research the headlines on Monday morning.
Before he presses a button to end all this, right?
Right.
Just remember, if you liked us, we are the Two Davies. If you didn't like us, what can I say? John Swinney's fan club. There you go.
See you later, guys. Tomorrow morning, 10:30. Don't be late. No